Does ayahuasca and DMT open us up to demons? What about the third eye? What about pineal gland activation and chakra activation? Well, let's talk about that in this video. So yesterday I posted a video called How to Make Ayahuasca at Home. And Neil, who's been one of our longtime viewers and listeners, actually left a comment that said, "Does ayahuasca open us up to demons?" Then he followed it up by saying, well, it kind of sounds like a stupid question in hindsight. Well, let me say this first and foremost. There are no such thing as stupid questions. Ask all the questions you want. I'll try to answer whatever I can in the comments. Other people will answer them as well. And it also gives me some more material to work with. So if you have questions, please leave those questions in the comments. When it comes to the idea that ayahuasca and DMT opens you up to demons, in order to fully understand the answer to this, you have to first understand what are demons. I've identified two different types of demons in my experiences. The first type is very easy to identify, but it's the hardest to deal with, hands down. So what I'm referring to are your inner demons. See, we're programmed throughout this matrix when we first come into existence here with all kinds of different BS. BS is belief systems. And some of this is childhood traumas. Some of it is religious programming. Some of it is geopolitical programming. Others could be something that we did, maybe that we're really ashamed of. Maybe we hurt somebody really bad and we can't forgive ourselves. Maybe we lost our parents at a young age. Maybe we're orphans. Maybe life just hasn't been fair to us. So we start to harbor all of these negative emotional energies, and eventually they manifest into something that rides along with us in our consciousness. And we begin to react in certain ways to certain situations. You know, you've heard that mentality, oh, I'm going to get mines and that's it. And a lot of us are raised to believe that that's what the world is about. It's a dog-eat-dog world, and we've got to be cutthroat, we've got to be hardened, we've got to be this, we've got to be that. And all of this all comes up within the ayahuasca realm. And sometimes these negative emotional energies can actually manifest themselves into demons within your experiences. So what you're looking at may not necessarily be a quote unquote demon, like something that's external, but rather it's something that's internal. The idea that it can open you up to demonic possession and so on and so forth is not based on any kind of fact whatsoever. It may open you up to see your inner demons, but all in all, you have the choice to confront them. Now, you could open up something in yourself that could really screw you up if you're not prepared to deal with it. Let's say you were abused as a child and you completely forgot about that. Can you deal with those emotions now? Are you willing to deal with those emotions now? And if so, embark upon your quest and unlock these memories. The good thing about ayahuasca is it's not just going to show you something and scare the hell out of you. It's going to show you something and it's going to give you a tool to deal with it. So you don't have to worry about that, but you have to worry about yourself more than anything. And then you have the idea of ego as well. You do go through an ego loss, and I want to talk about ego disillusionment in another video. I was hoping to do it in this video, but I want to keep this on the basis of demons. But I'll talk about ego loss in another video. However, the ego stands in the way, and the ego is your worst demon, because that's the one that just does not want to go, and you have to constantly fight to get rid of that. So you may encounter some scary stuff. Yeah, absolutely. But it's your own BS. It's your own garbage that you need to weed through in order to come out and be the warrior. So that's one type of demon. However, let's talk about the demons that everybody wants to hear about, the external forces that are demonic entities. And I know that sounds sexy and it sounds scary and it sounds spooky and you're like, oh yeah, let's talk about this. And they're true, they're real, but it's not quite as glamorous as Hollywood makes it out to be. So first of all, you don't have entities that are going to just take over your body at will, and that's that. what happens is that people tend to make contracts with these energies and they don't even realize that they're making these contracts. So I'll give you an example. I was working with somebody and they wanted me to clear them of their negative energy, but they were on heroin and they thought that the heroin was, or they thought that this energy was the catalyst for their heroin use. But in actuality, it was backwards. The heroin use was allowing this negative energy to come in and take over. And so I asked him what his plans are to get off of the heroin. And he said, well, I don't really have any plans. I don't have any goals. I don't have any this and that. I just want to remove myself from this negative energy. And he turned to a time when him and a couple of his friends were trying to conjure something up through the Ouija board, in order to try to get power and fame and money and all this ridiculous egoic stuff. So it spawned from that particular experience. And these divination tools like Ouija board and tarot cards and all this, they're neither good or evil. They're neutral. It's the intention that you put into them. If you're using these tools for a negative purpose, then yeah, you're probably going to be facing with some negative shit. And you're probably going to have to deal with that. But he did not want to let go of that. See, these negative energies can sometimes cling on to us and they make us feel like they're helping us or that they're there for our benefit or something like that. And they're just kind of like ride along spirits that come in and just kind of cling on to it. But we allow them to come in by doing things that we know we're not supposed to do, like freaking heroin. You're not supposed to put stuff in your veins, dude. Sorry. Especially something that gets you so physically addicted. But a lot of people are trying to break that, and ayahuasca is a great way to break it. But in this particular case, he wasn't ready to let go of the heroin use. Therefore, I couldn't help him on a spiritual level because he was just going to turn around and just entangle himself all over again. And there was this other person that I helped out, and this person was very near and dear to me. And my guides told me, no, you can't help her. You can't, because she is just going to turn around and walk right back to the dark side as soon as you get done helping her. And she came to me and said, please, can you help me? Can you clear me? Yeah, I don't want to be under this influence anymore. And I did. And despite my better judgment and all that, I carried her spiritual body into this machine in the astral realm and completely like just combated this negative energy, which was a huge negative energy. It took so much out of me and just like completely sucked me dry for the next like 2 weeks. I really had to regenerate myself after that one. And that's exactly what she did, is she walked right back to that negative energy. And I had to like just take a few steps back and hope that she walks the path by herself. But now it's like she's so entangled in that negative energy that it's just like a lost cause at this point. So, you do have to be careful how you're helping people and where you're giving your energy to, because it could wind up that you're just wasting a lot of your energy. So the question is, do you want to let go of your demons? Because a lot of people don't, and they'll take ayahuasca. They're afraid they're going to encounter their demons simply because they don't want to let go of their demons because they're comfortable with them. So the question is, are you comfortable with your demons? In order to understand good and evil, light and dark, positive and negative beings, we have to define positive and negative. So the standard that I use is anything that preserves life and preserves freedom is good. Anything that impedes upon life or impedes upon freedom is bad. And you can apply this standard to literally everything. Cannabis prohibition. Is throwing people in jail for cannabis an act of good or an act of evil? Well, it impedes upon their freedom to smoke cannabis. So it's an act of evil. Is smoking cannabis bad? Well, let's see. Does it impede upon life? Does it impede upon freedom? No, it doesn't. So obviously it's fine. There's no moral hangups when it comes to that. Murder? Is that an act of evil? Yeah, absolutely. Impedes upon the life and the freedom of the person being murdered. So it's very simple to define this. And you also have to look at it from an egoic way too. So does a being that you encounter want to elevate you and teach you? Or are the beings that you encounter, do they want you to bow down, feel less than them, and tell you, oh, look at my glory, look at this, look at that? So that would be another standard that I would use to define light beings from dark beings. And when you look at our modern religion and the people that are telling you that ayahuasca, divination, meditation, yoga, all of these different tools that we have are evil, Well, you have to look at them first and look at their own tree, because the fruit is going to be indicative of what the tree is. So let's take a look at what kind of fruit this tree has been producing. So let's take a look at the Abrahamic religions here for just a moment, because this is where all these ideas come from, the idea that all this stuff is evil. And you go all the way back to Abraham, because that's where they're all based from. Abraham had two sons, and he probably had more kids. I don't know, but it's irrelevant for this particular point. And these two sons were Isaac and Ishmael. In the Judaic traditions, they believe that Isaac was taken to the mountain to be sacrificed, and that at the last minute, an angel came down and told Abraham, oh, stop, don't sacrifice your son. In Islam, they believe that it was Ishmael who was taken up to the mountain. And so Islam follows the bloodline of Ishmael, and Judaism and Christianity follow the bloodline of Isaac. But in actuality, it's all linked up to the God of Abraham. All religions, except for like Buddhism and Hinduism and things like that. But I'm talking about the three dominant religions: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. So you have this one being who was the God of Abraham, that's known by Allah, Jehovah, Yahweh, Yahuwah, and all these other different ridiculous ass names that the people come up with for this particular being. And then they argue with each other that this being is somehow different, even though it's all the God of Abraham that's being worshipped here. So let's go all the way back to Egypt here for just a moment, and the situation with the Pharaoh and Moses. So Moses went to the Pharaoh, and he said, hey, I want to take my people to go pray for 3 days. It's our tradition to do so. I want to take a few cows and cattle and things like that. And the Pharaoh said, yeah, sure, no problem. But then what happened is this Jehovah, Yahweh, Allah character went to the Pharaoh and hardened the Pharaoh's heart. He took over the mind of the Pharaoh and made him stop the Israelites from leaving. So he impeded upon the freedom of the Pharaoh to make the decisions that he wanted to make, which was to let the Moses people go pray for 3 days. And a series of plagues ensued throughout that situation. So then you have the final outcome of this, which is the slaughtering of all the firstborn in Egypt. Not only the Egyptians, but the slave girls' firstborn, the cattle's firstborn, etc., etc. And this is where you get Passover from. But the very act of murdering babies is evil. Any way you look at it, it doesn't matter. You can't do all these mental gymnastics and say this is anything but an evil act, because it impedes upon the life and it impedes upon the freedom of not only the Egyptian babies, but of the cattle's babies and the firstborn, of the slave girls, etc., etc., etc. So we take it to the time of the flood, and in the flood, everybody was killed, just indiscriminately. Fuck it, kill the whole world. And you have all these biblical scholars now trying to spin it and say, well, they were trying to get rid of the Nephilim bloodline. Well, if that's the case, then what the hell happened? Because we're still living, and supposedly the Nephilim have returned, and we live in a completely horrible state in the world right now, and our consciousness is so far off balance that we're indiscriminately killing each other. And not only are we doing that, but you've got the Christian factions fighting with the Islamic factions and oppressing everybody in the process. So we have to ask ourselves, is this Jehovah character good or evil? You see the paradox here? Good can't operate like that. So you have this Jehovah character that's telling you that divination, meditation, ayahuasca, etc., is opening you up to demons. But at the same time, this character is operating as a demon itself. So demons are telling us not to open this part of ourselves because we're going to be exposed to demons. So you see, it makes absolutely no sense when you start to look at it like that. And the fact of the matter is that these tools are being kept from us because the powers that be don't want us to realize these parts of ourselves. Because if we realize that we are infinite consciousness, then we will start to live in unity with one another, and we realize we don't need all these systems of control. So that's on the spiritual and physical level. And so then you have to ask yourself, well, what about Satanism? You've got this whole idea of Satanism and the satanic panic of the 80s and all these people supposedly murdering goats and dancing in the woods naked and doing child sacrifices, etc., etc. So you look in the Bible and, well, the Bible is full of child sacrifice, animal sacrifice, women are slaves, women are property, go kill your neighbor's kids, take their wives, take their daughters. And anytime you read the word virgin in the Bible, that's an underage girl. So you find a virgin that is attractive to you in another town and that you've taken over, you can take her as your slave wife and you can trade her and you can do all kinds of stuff like that. That's demonic. Any way you look at it, it's demonic. So you start to put things into perspective and you're like, wait a minute. Okay, so light is dark and dark is light. And this darkness has taken the light symbols and they've used them and committed acts of evil under these light symbols. And then they've taken dark symbols and they're supposedly parading these around as an act of good. So let's take the crucifixion in and of itself right there. The crucifixion was the most horrible thing that ever happened if this being Jesus Christ actually walked the earth and if he was really an ascended master that was coming back and saying, hey, we got to rebalance the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And the religious hierarchy is just completely out of line, just like we're experiencing now in this day and age. So they take this guy, beat him to a pulp, and crucify him. So you take this medieval torture device, which is a symbol of death and chaos and destruction and some of the most horrible things, that a horrible way to kill somebody, and they're still doing this in Saudi Arabia, and you put it on top of a Bible. Now it becomes a symbol of good somehow. See, light is dark and dark is light. They take the light symbols and they reverse them, like the swastika, which is a symbol of unity, love, harmony, and oneness with the divine, and they turned it into Nazism. Same thing with the cross. You take a symbol of death and destruction and you turn it around and make it a light symbol. And energetically, people are still following that dark energy, etc., etc. And people are also energetically staying away from things like unity with the divine and oneness with God, etc., by looking at the Nazi symbol and going, oh, that's evil. That's evil. It is evil in the Nazi context. Don't get me wrong. But it's energetically, that's not what that symbol represents, but they want you to feel that way and react that way. They're constantly sending us what I call syntax errors in the brain. We turn 13 years old and we start to get these sexual urges and we're told that sex is evil. We're told that masturbation is bad. We're told all this ridiculous stuff. And throughout our teenage years, especially if you're raised in the church, you're believing, oh, wow, I'm such a horrible person. I'm a sinner. I'm this and that. I'm having all these feelings that I don't understand. And I'm being told that I'm going to go to hell for all these feelings, etc., etc. And that creates a very fucked up person. And when it creates that fucked up person, a couple of different things can happen. Either A, that person just completely shuts off all their emotions and goes completely numb and just follows this brainwashed programming like a robot. Or that programming starts to break down in them and they don't know how to deal with it. And then poof, you get the Catholic schoolgirl syndrome, where you've got 18-year-old girls going out there and getting banged on Pornhub by 50 different guys in their Catholic schoolgirl outfits. So it's not healthy any way it goes. But that's what we're breaking out of. So many of us have come to ayahuasca wanting to break out of all of these different programs and recognize all of these demons. But I got to ask you, though, are you ready to recognize the biggest demon of all? The one that has infected this matrix with this unnatural darkness. The one that has killed thousands and trillions and millions. Not thousands and trillions and millions. That's kind of silly. One that has killed millions upon billions upon trillions. There, that's the proper order. Of people throughout the course of history. The one that tells you, bow before me, worship me, you are a wretch, you are a sinner, you are this and that. If you encounter an entity like that in the ayahuasca realm, they're taking away your power because you have the ultimate power in this. You have the ultimate power in your sphere of consciousness. So let me give you an example from a personal experience. So I was sitting back on the couch one time and I saw these demon faces appear in these portals. And one portal didn't have a demon face and the other ones did. And I looked at the ones with the demon faces and I thought, so what? So you're supposed to like try to scare me here or something? Is that what you're here to do? How about this? How about I just go right through you? And just started navigating towards this demon face. And I started to stare it down. And the more I stared it down, the more it started to dissolve. And then poof, it disappeared. And I wound up in this spacecraft with these three insect-like beings. Like I wrote an article about this back in 2012. It's no longer on our website, but if you Google Chris Geo ayahuasca purging, a friend of ours, Mike, posted it on Before It's News, and I think it's still there on Before It's News. So I encounter these beings, these three beings, and they look at me and they're like, "What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "I'm the one asking the questions here, okay? What are you doing here?" And they said, "Oh, you're just a talking monkey. Go back to your monkey business. You're not even supposed to be here." And boom, flung me back into this room with all these geometric patterns and this beauty and just harmony, and everything was dancing to the music. And I took a few moments and absorbed it, and I was like, wow, this is incredible. But then out of the corner of my eye, I could see one of their eyes looking down, almost like it was like a shoebox, like inside of a little box like that. And I can see them over here in the corner. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. No, I remember what I need to do. I need to go back and I need to get back to that place and talk to these guys. So I'm like moving my arms like this, like, oh, trying to get these visions out of my way. And I thought that I was laying on the couch, but I was actually like doing this. And Cherie was like, oh my God, what's going on? And she thought I was having a seizure, but until she realized that I was really deep in trance. And I navigated back over there and I claimed myself as the creator. And I said, look, this is my experience. This is my consciousness. You tell me what's going on here. And I said, what is that? And I pointed to this ball of energy that was there. And I swear I could see I can see space out of a window. Like it was a spacecraft that I was on. I mean, it was the most bizarre scene. And they said, this is the universe. And I said, okay, well, did you create it? And they said, no, we didn't create it. We just maintain it. And I said, well, who created it? And they tried to push me back again. And I'm like, no. I want to know who created you. I want to know everything that's going on here. And finally they said, okay. And they didn't tell me who created them. Like that was something that they didn't get to. But I said, who created the universe? And they said, you created it. And I was like, wow, okay. I didn't even catch it at first. Like it wasn't until hindsight that I started thinking about the experience. So they took me back like behind the scenes, and there were all these different desks. Like it was like an alien craft, and there were all these monitors with these desks. And I sat down in one of them, and there was this other being that came up to me, and he was showing me, you can do this, you can do that, you can create rain. And I was seeing this big rainforest, and I swear it was Brazil. I turned on this device and it just started like creating this huge hurricane, and I turned it up more and more and more and more, and it was creating hurricane and winds and all kinds of stuff like that. And I got up and I walked over to another part, and they were showing me different elements of how reality is created and how reality is maintained. And I asked them, why did you do this? And they said, well, this is where souls exist. They can't exist outside of this reality. And so we maintain the universe. And the next day when I woke up, this is kind of a little kind of side, it makes me chuckle. I'm not claiming anything here, but there was a huge flood in Brazil. And I was like, the next day when I read it, I was like, oh shit, did I do that? Like, you never really believe these experiences completely. I mean, you've got to chalk it up to coincidence first. But after an experience like that, the thought does cross your mind like, oh shit, did I do that? Oops. So anyways, so I encountered these three beings, but were they demons? No. Were they positive or negative entities? Well, they weren't quite positive entities, and they weren't quite negative entities either, because they were negative entities when I first encountered them, because they tried to push me away instead of trying to elevate me. But then when I proved to myself that I was ready for the knowledge, by first going through the demon phases, and second, navigating myself away from the playful beauty stuff, because that was also a trap in and of itself, or a trick, I should say, a distraction, that's a better way to frame it. Then I was able to go back, and then they gave me the information that I went there looking for. So would you call those demons? If you're going to judge things by the way they look, then yeah, absolutely. Anything that's non-human is going to look like a demon. And we hear this from the Christian sect all the time. Like, oh, all entities are aliens, or all aliens are demons, and anything that's not from here is a demon, etc., etc. But how do we know? Like, God only created us and everything else is demons? I mean, That's like caveman mentality when you start to think about it like that. So you got to ask yourself, like, where are our brothers and sisters? Now, here's where it gets interesting, though, this dynamic is that the higher I get, the more enlightened beings that I meet, the more they can't interfere with what we're doing here. And it's a conundrum. Like, you have a dark entity, like Yahweh, for example, and he can have people go bang door to door and say, hey, follow me, bow to Yahweh, you're a wretch, you're a sinner, you're this and that. And if you don't follow this, then he's going to send you to hell forever and ever and ever. But if you do follow this, then you get to worship him forever, which is fucked up in and of itself. Like, that's what we're going to heaven for, so we can worship this egoic being called Yahweh. Bullshit. There's way more to existence than just that. So we, as the light, we can't go force this upon people. Like, we can't go knocking door to door. Like, I can do YouTube videos and tell you about my experiences and tell you about rebalancing the sacred feminine and the sacred masculine and the compassion and love and empathy and so on and so forth. But I can't tell you there's going to be hell to pay if we don't rebalance the feminine with the masculine and et cetera, and I'm going to do this through the barrel of a gun, and if you don't go along with it, then I'm going to kill you, et cetera, et cetera. Light beings can't operate like that. You have to go to them. They can't come to you, because then they're interfering with your free will, and therefore they wouldn't be acting as light beings because they're impeding upon your freedom. So does ayahuasca open you up to demons? Again, it depends how you define demons. So there is another interesting dynamic going on here with the religious structure. So we have the church, which claims to be the good guys. You have Satanists, which is the Hollywood type of satanic panic that supposedly, stupid high school kids get together and put on little pentagrams and go murder a cat in the woods or something like that. And then you have LaVey Satanists, which is nothing more than atheism. Like, if you've ever read the Satanic Bible or really understand what Satanism is about, they don't believe in God. They don't believe in the devil. They're mocking the church, and they believe that there is nothing after this, and that there is no spirit, and that you should do whatever you want here in this world because it's the only life that you're going to get. So you've got these three very distinct ideologies that are supposedly all the exact same thing. I mean, they're supposedly all the exact opposite from one another, but in actuality, they're the exact same thing. They're all different arms of the exact same beast, all designed to keep you away from the truth. So if you're into the mainstream religions, then you give your divinity and your soul essence over to this being named Jesus, or over to this being named Allah, or Muhammad, or whatever. You're giving away your power. If you're a Satanist in the sense of the high school satanic panic type of bullshit, then you're giving your soul over to quote unquote Satan. And if you're a LaVeyan type of Satanist, then you're giving your soul essence over to nothing. And you're not even recognizing your soul essence at that point. So any way it goes, this Yahweh character has you convinced, because all of this all spawns from the church, like the satanic panic propaganda all came from the church. The LaVey stuff all came from the church as well. And so it's all the same arms of the same beast, but it keeps you away from your own divinity. But there is a lot of animal murder, child murder, pedophilia, so on and so forth, within the Bible itself. I mean, like, just the fact that Abraham took his children up there to be sacrificed, I think goes to show that that was pretty common practice back then, and that's why he didn't even question it whatsoever. So you have all these different traps that you have to break free of. But then when you drink ayahuasca, you're able to recognize all of the demons, your inner demons and external demons at the same time. You're able to realize all the different systems of control. Then you're able to make that choice. Where do you want to go with your existence? And the fact is that we've all come to ayahuasca for the same reason, because we want more. We want something better. We want to achieve higher levels of consciousness. We're not happy with the way things are now. If we were kept in the Garden of Eden in a quote unquote state of bliss, which is ignorance, ignorance is bliss, bliss is ignorance, then we're not seeking anything higher. And so we're stuck in a perpetual state of being like an animal, where we're at this lower frequency level. But if we ascend into higher realms, then we're really walking the path and reaching our own divinity. And the positive entities, in my opinion, want to elevate you, want you to realize that you are a higher being, want you to realize that you can vibrate at these higher frequencies. They don't want to keep you down. They don't want you on your knees. They don't want you bowing. Anything that tells you to bow is evil. There's no other way around it. Anything that wants to elevate you is good. So I know that I jumped around in many different places in this particular video, but I think that a lot of this really needed to be said. And like I said, feel free to take away from this whatever resonates with you, leave the rest. This is my understanding as I know it. But I know one thing for sure is that we do need to rebalance because we are totally off balance, and we will do so. One person at a time, we will shine the light and we will reclaim the light. We're not going to let them parade all these light symbols around and do acts of evil and likewise tell us that the light symbols are bad. We're not going to let them take the light from us. We're going to shine the light. We're going to shine the true light, and we're all going to ascend into these higher levels together. So I hope you've been able to take something out of this video. And if you have any questions, comments, anything like that, leave them in the comments section. Don't forget to hit the like button. It helps to tell YouTube, hey, people like this, and it starts to get recommended to other people in the YouTube search results and in recommended videos and so on and so forth, and really helps to spread the message. So together, we will get to these next levels. Together, we will ascend, and we will all step beyond the veil. See you next time.